Hi there, and welcome back to Blue Ocean English. This is the next video in a series for introducing exam preparation. In this video, we will look at each part of the exam, the reading, the listening, the writing and the speaking, and I'll give you some excellent exam tips to help you get a fantastic score in the exam. So, let's get started, and we'll begin with the reading exam. So the first piece of advice is, if you are not quick at reading, then practice reading, become faster at reading, so in the exam it's not a problem for you. The second piece of advice is pay a lot of attention to synonyms. In the reading exam, it's very normal that in the question they use one word, and in the answer there is a synonym, a word that means the same but a different word. And the third piece of advice about reading is with skimming and scanning. So I will explain more in later videos, but basically skimming and scanning means looking very quickly for pieces of information. So for example, maybe a date or a month or someone's name or a number, where you're not reading all of the text, you're just looking for a part of the text that has one specific word that maybe that is where the answer is. So you don't need to read all of the article, all of the text, you just need to find one word. And skimming and scanning is a way of quickly looking at the piece of text and finding the word. And this is something you can practice. You can become much better at doing this. So practicing is a very good idea. Now let's look at the listening exam. The first thing I want to say is that it's very common in the exams, especially higher level exams, that they use different accents. So maybe they have an American or a Scottish person or an Australian person, for example. So practicing listening to different English accents can be a very good way to practice for the exam. Also, listening to local radio stations. You can find on Google or something, you can search local radio stations in America or Australia or the UK, and you can listen to local radio, and this is fantastic for different accents, but also just for practicing listening to the speed of English. It takes a lot of time to practice the speed and being comfortable with how quickly people can speak. Also, practicing past exams, past papers, is probably the best way to practice for this exam. The past paper exams have full listening papers, and it's a fantastic, realistic way to practice the exact scenario for the exam. And I mentioned before, but it's also very important that you use correct spelling in the listening exam. And again, just like the writing paper, very often the exam will use synonyms. So in the question there will be a word that is used, and in the listening they will use a different word that means the same thing, and that's where the answer is. Next, we'll look at the writing exam. So again, synonyms can be very useful when you're writing, and also, to repeat myself, advanced vocabulary and advanced grammar. So things like idioms, conditionals, passive, phrasal verbs. Find ways to use these things, show the examiner all the things that you can do in English. Be very careful to answer every part of the question. Very often it will say something like, write a letter with 3 different things included. If you don't include all 3 of those things, then you will lose points. You need to write everything that they're asking you to, or you will lose points. If you do not answer the question, you cannot get a great score in the exam. It's that simple. It's also important to understand if you're writing a formal or a friendly letter. Is it a business type letter? Is it to your friend? Is it to your boss? To a director? Is it for an interview? For a job? So using the right level of formality is very important. And also the word limit is important. If it asks you to write 200 words about something and you only write 40 words, then you have a problem. You will lose points. Or if it asks you to write 200 words and you write 600 words, it's a problem. You will lose points. So try to stay around the limit of the number of words that they give you. It's also important to remember that you're in control of the time that you use. You can choose your time. I always think putting something in the past is a good way to begin. Then you can move back and forward using the past perfect or the present perfect or the future, and it gives you lots of opportunities to show all the tenses that you know. If you just write using the present simple, the present continuous and simple things, you're not going to get a fantastic score. Let's move on to the speaking exam. So here's some general tips for the speaking exam. The first thing to say is that you don't have much time. In total, you will probably speak for maybe 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, depending on the exam you take. But you only have a very short amount of time to actually speak and show the things that you know. Show how good you are at using English. So it's very important to make use of all the time that you have. If you have 1 minute to speak, it's really important that you fill your time. You use the whole minute. Don't stop after 20 seconds. If you do that, you're losing the chance of 40 seconds of showing them how good you are at English. And remember, in general, mistakes don't matter. They're not listening for your mistakes, and you won't lose points for mistakes. So it's really important to fill your time full of great English. Try to use lots of nice phrases, nice words, nice grammar to answer the questions. Remember, it's much better to try and fail than not to try. The second point is about interaction with others. So this is more important for the Cambridge exam because you do it with other students. So it's an easy way to get points, is be natural. Listen to the other person speaking. Use some of their ideas. Talk about their ideas. Agree or disagree with the other person. Or ask them what they think. Ask them for a suggestion or ask them for their ideas. Involve the other person in the conversation. What you get points for is not being a robot. In so many exams, I see people, they speak for 1 minute and they don't stop, and then they ask the other student a question, and then the other student speaks for 1 minute. This is not a natural conversation. You get points for having a natural conversation with people. So in the exam, try to be natural with your conversation. Say something for 10-15 seconds, then ask the other person what they think, and have a conversation where it goes from one person to the next. It's an easy way to get points in the speaking exam. The next thing to say is try to connect your ideas. You get points for what's called discourse management, which is the structure and the fluency of your ideas, how you connect your ideas together. So using linking words is very important. Words like however, although, things like this. Try to get your ideas to flow so that it's easy to follow. And now I just want to quickly look at some things that you can plan for the speaking exam. So the first thing, in the first section, you normally talk about your hobbies, your school, your job, your family, where you live. These things you can prepare very well for. You can prepare so that you can use a conditional to talk about your family, so that you can use the passive to talk about your hobby. Maybe you can use some phrasal verbs or some idioms or some really nice vocabulary about your hobby or your job or your favorite holiday or your favorite film. Practice using all this nice grammar and nice vocabulary to talk about the things that you might use in the first part of the exam. In the second part, you're often describing a picture or a graph. So when you describe a picture, try to find nice adjectives to describe the picture, or describe how it makes you feel, or describe what you think the people in the picture are thinking or feeling. Use your imagination. And again, remember, it's about filling the minute that you have. So don't describe the picture for 20 seconds and then stop. Try to find a way to keep speaking and using all the time that you have. Another good example when you're describing a picture is very often the picture will either be in a town or a city or in the countryside. So learning to describe buildings and things that you can find in a city, learning a nice idiom about cars or a nice phrasal verb about people walking in the street, or in the countryside, learning some nice phrases about being out in the countryside, away from the world. So that's the end of today's video. Here we looked at excellent exam tips for the reading, listening, writing and speaking exams. In the next video, I'll give you lots of excellent exam tips for everything connected to the exam. Thank you for watching and good luck. Here we are, just another typical English summer day. Just before I go, it's just me doing everything here at Blue Ocean English. So if you like what I'm doing and you want to see more, please don't forget to leave a comment. Maybe you have an idea for a video or a nice background picture that you'd like to see, or share this video with a friend. The best way for you to say thank you is to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and check out my merchandise, all the nice things you can buy, t-shirts, hats. You can also check out our great books on Amazon. There's 3 phrasal verb books, An Ocean of English phrasal verbs, each book with 200 examples, a lovely picture and 3 clear examples of how we use each phrase. And then 3 books for idioms, they're called An Ocean of English Idioms. Also 3 books with 600 idioms, 200 in each book, all with a picture and 3 clear examples of how we use each idiom. Thank you very much for watching, and wherever you are, try to feel English today.